Hello, Internet. Welcome back to the Geek and Dad podcast, where I find and interview other parents who are making a living doing their thing out on the internet, embracing their nerdy, geeky passions. Today, on this second episode, I have one very awesome dude, Ivan Van Norman. Ivan is a personality on the Geek and Sundry Twitch channel. He also happens to be an author of a children's book, and he's done many other things, including being on King of the Nerds. Ivan and I have a wonderful conversation about the role RPGs play in our lives, from a parenting perspective, from just a changing the norms perspective, and everything else you can think of. We also talk about his new book that is coming out, The ABCs of RPGs, which he will read a part of it, and you do not get to see what I got to see, which was the amazing artwork that is in this book. But if you go check out the pre-order page, you will get to see what I saw. So, that being said, please enjoy this interview with Ivan Van Norman. So, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Geek and Dad podcast. Today I have none other than Ivan Van Norman himself. This man has been in the geek space for quite a while. In fact, I just recently learned that you were on King of the Geeks.
Oh, yeah, King of the Nerds.
King of the Nerds, that's right.
Oh, man, so many years ago.
When I started to try to learn a little bit more about you than I knew from Geek and Sundry, where you're on twice a week with Game the Game and No Survivors, and also a parent of an almost 1-year-old now.
Yeah,
so,
it's fun.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for the invite. I'm happy that you're cutting your teeth, getting in the podcast space, getting ready to go out and make some stuff happen. So I'm consistency is key, as I think you'll learn, and I've heard this a lot. Is that it's just like YouTube videos. The more you do, the more that people can kind of like expect a certain thing from you and a certain quality over a course of time. You know?
Exactly, and hopefully it only gets better and better.
It only gets better.
Hopefully. Yeah,
so it's good. He in fact that's the big thing that we're dealing with Phoenix right now. Is like he's going to be turning 1 next month. So the question is what the hell do you do for the first birthday? You know,
you invite all your friends, you invite all your family, and you basically throw a party for yourself that's themed around him.
Yeah, right. It makes sense, and that's what I've learned, and that's what I know. But it's also just trying to make it easy for the chitlins as well too, because it can't just be a full-blown adult party. It needs to be safe, and to be honest, we don't even have a lot of people who we know that have kids that are Phoenix's age.
Yeah.
So we're kind of like, of our friend group, we're the first parents of of kind of our friend group. We have one friend who is 5 months along on her pregnancy right now, but she's got a while to go. And the only other friends who we know that have kids in this space are either like acquaintances or they live like in San Francisco-ish area. You know.
So so we were in our group. We were the only ones without kids for the longest time.
Got it.
And it was so interesting because we watched them raise their childrens and their younglings, and now we're in the mix with it too. But we still feel so new at this, even though
they're like
all
giving
of our
you all
other
the support.
friends, but even though all of our other friends are the exact same age as us, basically, but they all have like 5 kids or 3 kids or 4 kids, and we're just over here with we're expecting our second kid sometime this month. Well,
wow. Yeah. Well, then you are a stalwart individual for sitting here while waiting for that kid to happen. So.
Well, it works out because mommy gets cravings.
Yeah.
Right now, my mother-in-law is having to stay with us because of flooding. If you Google flooding, Richmond or Rosenberg, Texas, I'm on the cusp of that. My mother-in-law is affected by it right now.
Rough.
So it's quite interesting. So yeah, she had to come over. We tried to get her to come over in the middle of the day yesterday, and she thought everything was gonna be fine. And then at midnight, I get woken up by my wife saying, "Go help my mom's coming, blah blah blah, and then I passed out, and the next thing I know, I'm waking up, and I completely forget what happened.
And just you black out, and your mother-in-law's there.
Pretty much, I woke up and I walked out the door, and I was slightly startled, and I was like, oh yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, that was fun.
So really, how is your space, and how are you kind of integrating your kids kind of into your fandom? Are you I was always something that was fascinating to me too. It's like, how do you like appreciate your fandom with your kids without shoving it down their throat? Because we all know how that goes, and it never goes well.
It doesn't. So it's right now, my fandom is Curious George with her.
Okay.
Because right now it's embracing what for me, because the things that I am a big fan of, especially like comics and games. She's only 2, so the only thing I can really do is embrace what she really enjoys right now.
Agreed.
And so I'm learning that, on Hulu right now, if you're not aware, you have access to all 9 seasons of Curious George.
Wow. Which
each episode is actually 2 mini episodes. So, I mean, binge watching Curious George for her is like the most amazing thing in the world, because you get like twice the episode per your time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. So you're just going crazy on nine seasons of Curious George with her.
Right now, that's where we are. Yeah. But it's funny because she goes. Sometimes it's Curious George. Sometimes it's Daniel Tiger. Other times it's Caillou. And it's just a never revolving door, of shows.
We watched a lot of Daniel Tiger when we were like going to the pediatrics and just kind of getting used to, going through the stage of maternity and stuff like that. And I was surprised just on one, when I first saw it, I was like, man, are they just doing a straight ripoff of like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood? And then I realized, no, that was intentional.
Yeah.
They actually made a big effort to make it feel like a really, inclusive, similar to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood vibe, while incorporating everything into Sing Song, because that's a really good way to remember things.
It is. And it was interesting. So I was listening to the Major Spoilers podcast the other day, and they were talking, their question of the week was, which childhood universe would you have loved to live in, or whatever?
Yeah.
And one of the options was Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Right.
And they brought up how nowadays we have Daniel Tiger, and they were talking about how much actual child psychology goes into the making of the shows.
I'm not terribly surprised,
and that it's extremely science based. And I heard that, I was, just because it's something that I don't think about. And when I heard that, I was like, that's why I like that show so much.
because it's well produced and thought out,
And the color palette, it's not just traditional cartoons. And yeah, there's a lot that I like about Daniel Tiger. Although, I mean, Curious George, though, man, he still entertains like none other.
He's still holding the torch. When it comes to quality children's entertainment, at least for your 2-year-old daughter. So
exactly. Now, is Phoenix into any shows right now yet?
No, he actually does not watch a lot of TV. We don't have a lot of TV in the house. In fact, we only stream. But as you were saying with Hulu, you were doing a lot of that. So we put on a movie every once in a while, but he doesn't have a real good attention span for it. Him being just almost 1. Yeah, and I don't think he's quite there. He's much more interested in his thing, ironically, is that he likes to be chased. He likes to, for some reason, he likes it when you go after him, like if you attack him or hide behind something and then raptor pounce on him. And not even scare him, but just raptor pounce on him. He's just into that. Yet at the same time, I had a friend from Portland come over, and he brought this dragon, it was actually, in hindsight, it was a really terrifying looking dragon that walked and made screaming sounds, just super loud. And it was the only time I've ever seen Phoenix terrified. It was the first time that I actually saw fear on my kid's face, because he bolted, dude. He's still a crawler right now, but he was.
I was going to say, is he crawling yet?
He is not. He was not into it. Not okay with it, which is amazing, because up to that point he'd been a pretty fearless kid. know?
Yeah. So let me ask you this: when this happened, what was your instinctual response? To feel bad, or laugh, or both?
Both. I mean, it was hilarious. It was so funny, and you feel bad for it being so funny. But
I think that's what it is. Yeah.
It's true. But when he did it, I was like, Phoenix, oh. A little man.
Yeah.
It's okay. Look at him. He's okay. Just give him a pet. He's like, no, I'm not into it. Scary dragon. You found Goodnight Moon. We've been looking everywhere. I just got a report from this other side that we finally found Goodnight Moon. It's like a very popular book in this house, and it has been missing for months. So,
what other books are popular right now in the house?
Baby Beluga. And which is a song that I used to get sung because my mom used to take me up to Alaska all the time during my summers. So that was kind of one of the first kid songs that I learned that I retained like memory of.
Oh yeah.
So we have like a sing along with the words book of that, and then Is Your Mama a Llama? We have so many kids books because not only do we like reading to Phoenix, but also because I just got a bunch for research for the ABCs of RPGs. So
that couldn't have been a more better transition. That on top of scaring Phoenix with the dragon, that's so perfect. Because I wanted to ask you about how the ABCs of RPGs came about. Was it a result of, I'm going to have a kid, this is a great excuse to write a book, or how did that come around?
It was a weird inception, because what happened is I was working I am still working for Geek and Sundry, but I was working on an article for Geek and Sundry that was centered primarily around like teaching the basics of role-playing games. Like, how do you learn about role-playing games in easy steps, And of course, this like supposed to be 10 5-minute, quick tips and tricks ended up turning into like 30 pages of diatribe, So in the course of trying to trim it down, I'm doing all these ways of like, okay, how can I just keep condensing this? And at some point in a meeting with them, I'm like, okay, well, I'm trying to break down basically the ABCs of RPGs. And the room was like, that is an amazing name. Like, that's perfect. It sounds like a children's book. And I'm like, oh, yes, actually it does. And so after I submitted, after that meeting, I basically wrote the ABCs of RPGs, just wrote them into a Word document somewhere. And then what happened is I submitted that document to editorial, and they're like, we're going to take a pass on it. It's too late. I'm like, okay, well, that sucks. Oh, well, I'm going to make a children's book now because I have this ABCs of RPGs. So, and the editor-in-chief, Rab Manuel, he was totally into it. He was like, yeah, you 100% should absolutely do that because that is a great idea. And so when the editor-in-chief says that you have a great idea, it basically gives you an automatic permission to do something and get at least a little bit of mutual support for it. And it was, and that was kind of it. I wrote it out, and it took me about 6 to 8 months to find the perfect artist. And I had to actually start the whole project, and then scrap it because I didn't like the direction the artist was going.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing about this process is that I didn't just get lucky from the ground up. I found an artist who was a friend. He was extremely talented, but he didn't quite get it. Like, he was very talented, and he took direction extremely well. So he would make my notes, but it just wasn't delightful. You know what I mean? It wasn't whimsical enough.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, I just discovered Caleb's work because around October, he did this Inktober sketch line in which he was doing kids with monsters, D&D monsters, and it just blew up over the internet. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, done, easy, locked in. And I just approached him about it, and we totally did it. We did the thing. And now it goes to the printer tomorrow.
To the printer tomorrow? Wow.
Yeah. So
I was so sad when I couldn't get on the Kickstarter because the whole thing, I mean, like I'm reading it and I'm like, my daughter's 2. We're reading a lot of books. We're starting to get into ABCs with some Learning Express flashcards and things like this. And it's like, this would be really fun in about 6 to 12 months with her to start going through it.
And here's the thing. Here's the good news is that I'm doing the Pledge Manager tomorrow, and you can pre-order. So you can still get in on it, Kyle, if you want, because tomorrow, in theory, I'm going to put up the Pledge Manager, which will also be a pre-order store for the book. You know, you won't get it as soon as the backers do, but you can get it directly from my warehouse instead of having to wait and see if your local comic book store stocks it or not. That being said, you will, once it's available, be able to go to like your friendly local game store or your comic book store and be like, hey, can you order this? And they'll bring it, you know.
Yeah, see, it's unfortunate for you, dear listener, because this is being recorded probably about a good month before.
Right, so you may not be able to get it, but if you're listening to it a month and it's close to Gen Con, you will get it. You'll be able to have an opportunity to get it late in August. So, and I'll keep the Pledge Manager up. And if you go to our website, huntersbooks.com, or if you just go to Facebook and search the ABCs of RPGs, we have a handy little email sign up which will tell you exactly when it's available and where. So
that's awesome.
Don't worry about it. You have every opportunity to get it. It's just about when you want to get it. Is really what it comes down to. So
now, this is totally breaking what's going on, but did you realize that you're sharing your screen right now?
Yeah. Oh, it's breaking it? Okay. So
no, you're fine. I didn't know if you meant to do it or not. I was just making sure.
I was going to do it because I was going to show you some examples of what we've got.
No. Feel free. Show me. I just wanted to make sure it was intentional because I saw a calendar. I'm like, well.
No, calendar's good. So here we go. Check this out. Here is a bunch of the final art from the kids' book. So you've seen A, B, C, and D. But now here's E. E is for enchantment. Do you want jump, light, or blessed? F is for friendship, the ones we make while on quests. G is for game master. Ours is fair, just, and true. H is for heroes, especially ones like you. I is for imagination. What's your favorite tale? J is for journey. Let's wander down the trail. K is for kingdoms. Let's wander inside of one. L is for lost, which is sometimes just as fun. You know?
That's awesome.
And it keeps going. But that's as much as I'll preview for this time.
You know, I almost feel like I shouldn't have said anything because I feel like you would have read the whole book to me. The art, I think you're right when you say that, you know, there's a difference between someone someone who's doing a good job of taking your direction versus someone who gets it. And as you're reading it off and as I'm looking at it, you can see that the artist, Caleb is his name, right?
Yeah, Caleb.
Yeah, Caleb gets it. And it is
100% gets it. And he understands.
Gorgeous.
He's a role player. Like, he just understands the process, you know?
Yeah.
And it made it really easy because it was kind of one of those things where we would come up with a concept together. He'd come back, and very rarely would we have to make any tweaks just because he understands the parameters of what it is to make a fun-looking chocobo mouse-looking thing a la Numenera because he gets it, you know?
Yeah.
Versus a kingdom, which is the classic, like, what do characters experience when they go shopping at the, you know, rest zones between adventures, you know? And how does he make that and incorporate kids inside of it? It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
It really is. And it's something that I am very happy that I will have an opportunity to still get in just early enough.
Just barely.
Just barely.
Make sure you sign. Just make sure you're in the email because what I'll do is I'll put this up and then I'm going to do an email blast through it tomorrow, letting people know, hey, the pre-orders are up, and then I'll go through social media too. So
there you go.
Keep an eye on it.
Definitely. So this is perfect because I want to add the next thing that I want to talk about is something that you especially. This is what you do on Geek and Sundry. You do RPGs and tabletop gaming with No Survivors on Mondays and Game the Game on Thursdays, right?
Yeah.
From my perspective, you're sort of in the same category as like a Will Wheaton with tabletop, in that you've expressed so much of your. Well, I mean, from like so much of what you do, like you get into all the obscure games and you still you find them and all that fun stuff. And so it's with the ABCs of RPGs in conjunction with how much you're involved in tabletop and role-playing game. I'm curious to get your thoughts and philosophies on how you think it's going to influence how you parent and raise Phoenix moving forward and any other kids.
It's so interesting because, telling stories offline and telling stories online, they are kind of two different exercises, and I definitely feel like there's an element of I have an active imagination, so it's very easy to like let my walls down. And because one of the things I've learned and I've noticed is that in order to relate to your kid, you have to kind of be a kid.
Yeah.
Especially in those really young stages, you have to be willing to release kind of the shackles of responsibility and allow yourself to disconnect long enough in order to really enjoy their perspective. And that's key, and when you role play, that's all you do anyways. You remove the shackles of whoever you are in order to become who you want to be for a single session, especially if you're doing it in a traditional role play way. So in my opinion, it's just good tools that allows you to make that mental shift quicker and easier. So that you can do something like that. But Phoenix's mom is she doesn't really enjoy role playing that much. She's played on a couple of games, and she certainly doesn't like being an on-camera personality. But she's the queen of connecting to her son. She's so good at making like a really positive connection and being able to be there and be like not just attentive but also relate at the same time. And that's the key element. That's the key word is relate. I hope more kids do it, just because it will make for a more robust, interesting generation. The only counterpoint I can say to that is that we kind of got a creative generation when a bunch of rigid 1950s, dads were raising the flower power generation, So
there is something cyclical about it if you think about it, because that's when D&D was first coming out.
D&D was first rising, right?
And we're back in a renaissance of not only D&D but RPGs in general. And so it's funny that you bring that up. I mean, we're definitely back in this cycle.
Right, and it's odd because if I'm not a rigid 1950s style dad that's like about responsibility and just providing for the family versus interacting with my kid, is Phoenix going to be like a more loose, fast, and creative generation like the children's of the 60s and the 70s, or what is? Because especially when they get into that teen stage, they want to be everything that their parents aren't, while they're still doing everything that their parents do.
Yep.
It's the easiest way of saying it. So if I'm super creative and making all of this stuff, and I'm a imaginative and interactive dad, is he going to relate to that with me, or is he going to go the opposite direction? He
will be the high school athlete who gets a college scholarship and plays professional sports.
Yeah, he's going to be like a lacrosse player or running back. He's going to be a big kid because he's already he's 11 months and he's getting he's like 25, 26 pounds right now. He's just he's not a fat kid. He's just a big kid.
My daughter's only 24 pounds and she's 2.
Yeah, exactly.
She's tiny though. I mean,
I've picked up 2-year-olds that are way lighter than him.
Yeah.
He's just meat right now. So I would not be surprised. But that's cool because at the end of the day, fantasy football is D&D stats, I mean,
it's D&D stats on steroids in my opinion.
Right. So it's
although if you go fantasy baseball, that's like min-max level.
It's min-maxing. Absolutely. It's like how can I get my perfect combo.
Exactly.
So it's fun and it's fascinating, and I'm very interested to see what he's going to become. But I tell myself every day that he'll be whatever he wants to be, and it's not my job to tell him what he's going to be. It's just my job to show him all the great things in the world so that he can make an educated decision.
Certainly. Certainly.
And that's all it really comes down to is that's what my mother gave me, was just the power of choice. So giving him the power of choice. But then my generation also was given too much choice, and then we got analysis paralysis. So there's that too.
Yeah. There's a fine balance of I think one of the things that I find is that if I have a set number of choice, if I have the illusion of choice, but there's really a constraint, I feel the most confident in my decisions.
And those are the best game sessions. Those are the best role-playing sessions, is when you have the illusion of choice, but you've got a destination. That's a good point. So
they're fun. Those are the fun ones too. And I've got a friend. So I live in Texas. And in my college days, I played a lot of World of Warcraft, and I happened to meet a fella by the name of Kyle as well, who lives in Arizona. And ever since both of us have stopped playing World of Warcraft, we still have continued to become pretty good long-distance friends.
That's great.
And I found I've been a viewer of Geek and Sundry for some time now, and then found Critical Role in the Twitch channel probably, I don't know, maybe 3 months or so after it officially launched.
Okay.
And after the channel itself launched on Twitch. And I sent him a message. I was like, dude, you got to check out this show. It's called Critical Role, blah, blah, blah. And so we basically, every Thursday, we sit there and we Skype each other talking about what bad decisions Matt made or Grog made or, what have you.
Yeah.
And I've kind of given him the bug of being a DM.
Oh, cool. That's great.
And we've started an online session using the 5e rule set with just the Star Wars universe.
I'll see, that's perfect. And that's one of the reasons I love shows like that, too, is they are really igniting a new user base, a new fan base of people who want to tell stories,
Yeah.
And it makes doing like my show, No Survivors, so much more interesting because I'm not doing Critical Role. In fact, I'm doing everything I can to not be Critical Role. But there's still room for that because there's still lots of things to do,
Well, and that's the beauty of it is you start with a Critical Role or role play or an Acquisitions Incorporated, one of the big ones. And then all of a sudden when you start looking, once you find something you like and you start looking, you start realizing, oh, it's almost like there's a lot in the woodwork here. And there's a lot of exciting stuff some of it's on the fringe of just what the hell is going on, and some of it's just like pure awesomeness. Like, I don't remember, what was the game that you did where you were Sir Computer and you were fighting the commies?
Yeah, Paranoia. That was Chaos Incarnate.
I remember watching that and I was like, this is the best because it's so out there. I still don't really know what was going on, which I think makes it even that much more enjoyable because it's like.
And it's so weird because behind the curtain, it was pretty clear what they needed to do. It was they had a model number L1GH7BU7B that they needed to install inside of a housing inside of one of the high programmers' chambers. And if you look at that acronym spelled out, and I was hoping it would happen in chat. It's pretty clear what they're doing, without revealing too many spoilers. It's super fun. But the whole point is that it's just over. Paranoia is creating something out of nothing.
Yes. And that's what is just so. That's what drew me to it so much was the fact that it is like above anything else that I've ever seen.
I want to do more Paranoia too.
It is the blankest of blank slates.
It's the blankest of, and the prep I did on that game was insane.
I can imagine.
But they had such good players, and that's one of the reasons why Critical Role is the way that it is too, is because the players are so talented. You know, and you know, I had my No Survivors crew there too, and they were great. But then just having when Mercer's a player, he's just as entertaining as when he's a GM. And then Laura Bailey is just fun no matter what, because she makes great moments. You know.
But then I thought it was great watching like Hector and Jessica just like almost elevate their silliness in their game.
Yep.
Because it was like, oh, we have new people, and we're doing a one shot of this crazy game, and it was just that episode was just the perfect culmination of everything awesome about RPGs and about literally like letting go of all, like you had said earlier, letting go of all sense of like responsibilities and adultness, and just truly embracing your inner child.
Yeah, it was. It definitely, and it's amazing because the willpower to let that. It's so amazing that you have to use like adult things in order to let go. But the amount of willpower it took for me just to disconnect and let that ship sail.
Yeah,
was. It was a lot, and you know, I had a lot of respect for Mercer, who for a while was running 7 people in a game. It's okay when you have like such a structured storyline, like what is Critical Role, you know, it's just more people in battles. But when you have something like Paranoia, where literally anything can happen at any particular time, and it's actually the job of the players to be constantly interrupting each other all the time. You know, it was like I felt like just my brain shut down for an hour after that game was done, and I just needed to like reset and reboot, just like Alpha Computer.
I can only imagine. I mean, like, I should probably go watch it again, and I am definitely going to link this episode of the show in the show notes, because if you've never watched an RPG, that's fine. If you have a morning or an afternoon, or you want to spread it out over a week, just enjoy and have fun, because that episode to me represented so much of like what it means to be a parent, especially a parent of such young children, where you have to purposely let go, and
that's
where
a
you
really good
have
analogy.
to embrace the chaos and just go with the flow so much, because I still struggle to this day. We'll be standing in the living room and a song will come on from a TV show, and my daughter, "Dance, Daddy, dance." And so I even still, in front of nobody, have a hard time of letting go and just dancing with her. I'll do it. It's not pretty, but there's still, when no eyes are upon me, there's still a reservation. And so there's a lot that I feel like that show can teach you so much if you just look at it through the lens of being a parent and children, and what it means to be a parent in any shape, form, or fashion. And
so what you're saying, and if I'm hearing you correctly, is that running a game for Will Wheaton, Felicia Day, Matt Mercer, Laura Bailey, and the No Survivors crew is like managing small children.
Oh, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I hope one day I get to have Will Wheaton on and have a conversation with him, because he's on the complete opposite end of the parenting spectrum. He has at least one grown kid. I don't know.
He's got 2 grown kids, and he didn't get to be in the early stage of their life, you know, because he kind of was an inherited dad.
Yeah, you know? So it's one of those things that he has a completely, like, other point of view and another perspective from quite literally the opposite end of the spectrum at this point. And you know, if we're comparing the 3 of us, you, myself, and Will, in our lives. And so it'll be fun to be like, yeah, I had the opportunity to talk to Ivan, and just, it was, you know, we realized that wrangling you and the others is just like being a parent of a bunch of kids. Or cats. We don't know which, but...
So this is fun, because this is actually a really good lesson, I think, in that if you enjoy role playing games, use it as a way in order to use those skills in order to relate to your kids in a better way, because you have an opportunity to, so you might as well. and have fun the same way that you have fun with your players, and maybe interacting with your small toddlers or your little ones will allow you to do the same with your players, and you won't allow yourself to get into that squirrely head zone where it's like it's my way or the right way, or it's my way or the highway kind of situation.
And in the vice versa, like if you're always in your own head when you're playing with your kids, like go join your local D&D group or something like that, because it'll help you get out of your own head and help you get into a place where you let go of all that stuff. And so,
it's great.
RPGs, there's so many life lessons built in that it's unreal.
Yeah, and we're learning more every day because it's an analog way for people to relate to each other on a face-to-face level. And I still have a theory roaming around right now when it comes to board games is that the digital generation of people playing video games has slowly turned into this position where we're sick of the anonymity of the internet, and we've as a result of the anonymity of the internet, we're now resorting to more analog play with folks, and that's a byproduct of the fact that we're sick of just kids yelling at us and having this wall. So now we can face-to-face interact with our friends and get often more out of it.
Oftentimes, definitely. I know that we love to take a ticket to ride over to our friend's house, and we'll let the kids go to bed. We'll open up the liquor cabinet, and all bets are off.
All bets are off.
All bets are off. Yeah. Although always one parent is sober, so there's no driving drunk with kids in the car. Don't worry about that.
As always how it is. So,
always. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about, being in the position that you yourself are, which is that you're a content creator. You work odd end hours. You're constantly working on something, but then you're only on screen for a little bit of time, and you're working on 3 different things at once. How do you balance the work, dad, significant other role?
It's hard. That's just right off the bat. It's just extremely challenging. And I'm just lucky that I'm in a position where I have a really caring, awesome, wonderful partner who is willing to support me in my endeavors, and at the same time, have an opportunity. Phoenix was first before he started even hitting daycare. I was spending 2 days a week with him trying to work on my campaigns for work, as well as preparing for my shows. But it's having him also really laser focused me on like what's important, because instead of just saying yes to every opportunity that it comes up, whether it was good for me or not, or just having capacity to do something did not necessarily give me permission to do it. But now I literally kind of need to seek permission in myself whether I should be doing something or not. And it's difficult because you want to do everything, but you can't. And it's not all about you anymore. So you've got to make an effort for your little one. And more often than not, you try to incorporate your things into other things.
That you do, yep.
Like him with the book. So not only am I doing something fun, I think, for Phoenix, because I couldn't find anything that was like that in the world. Instead, I just made it with Caleb, but it's also great for my kid.
Yeah, no kidding. And so you bring up something that's an interesting point that I hear talked about on a lot of business podcasts, interestingly enough, is this concept of fear of missing out. And when you get to a point where you have to be purposeful with the time and decisions you make, do you find yourself running across that FOMO at all? You ever feel like you're because you're being purposeful about the time that you're spending and what you're spending it on, do you ever feel like you're missing on other opportunities?
Oh yeah. And especially when not too long ago you were on the other side of that fence. I actually have a word for it now it's like a struggle. It's Facebook envy. you know?
Yeah.
So when you go on Facebook and you see what everyone's doing and you're like, oh my God, I am missing out on so many things. But I'm so tired and I can't take the kid and all this other stuff. But then you have to remember that, especially in places like Facebook where people are only presenting the best of themselves at that particular time. And if you have a big friend group, if you're just seeing awesome things after awesome things after awesome things, because that's what everyone's posting on their Facebook, especially like a lot of my friends who are all like active in the geek community and they're cosplayers and they're doing cons and all this cool stuff. You just have to remember that you're seeing the culmination of everybody's peak moments. And you will have your peak moments too. But then these same people aren't doing that every single day. So that doesn't mean that you need to be doing that every single day. And it's a challenge because you have to consciously think about that instead of having the emotional response, which is the first thing that you normally do when you have that type of stuff. But I guarantee you, if you can fight it, then you'll have a lot less regret in your life.
Definitely. Is there anything that is there any like simple tricks you found that help you realize?
If you're worried about going somewhere because of baby's schedule, just go. Take him with you.
Yeah.
Suck it up and deal with it. If he's fussy in the car, then let him be fussy. And then when you get to your destination, just make the most out of it. You know, don't be frustrated if you have to do things slower. Because you're still doing them, you know? And even if you can't accomplish things, and if you can't accomplish something, then don't beat yourself up. I went to go even do something as simple as get gas this morning. And I was taking him to daycare, and I pulled into the gas station. They wouldn't take my card at the pump because it was like, you need to go pay inside. I get in there and trying to swipe my card, and it's like it's not even declining my card. It says not honored, which is the first time I've ever seen that. Like,
I've never heard that before.
I've never heard that ever in my life, and I have this huge line of people behind me, and I'm like, you know what? I could sit and fuss with this for half an hour, or I could just do this tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know? And then I was like, you know what, don't worry about it. And then I just took him, and then we went with the rest of our day. And I didn't let it destroy me. You know, I didn't let myself get super frustrated in front of him and in front of people. And I just told myself there'll be another opportunity to do this later. And moved on. And it was very liberating in its own way.
I can imagine.
Leading up to that, it was super frustrating. But then you let go of that frustration and just handle it. So
yeah.
And then and that's kind of the case. And you know, I've had to be reminded a few times that babies change, and just because they like doing something now and then they don't like it like the next week doesn't mean that suddenly everything's wrong. He's just he's a human being who has fluctuating tastes. Surprise, surprise.
I wonder where that comes from.
Right. But you know, I still do late nights and I still do early mornings, and you know, I'm becoming a morning person. But there's something to be said when you keep the quote unquote CEO schedule, you know, which is you go to sleep at 10, and then you get up at 5, and then you make a morning. You make yourself have a good morning, and then if you can accomplish more things by 9 a.m. than you normally would before 3 p.m., then you'd be surprised how much more energy you have throughout the day.
That's no joke.
And it's insane because, you know, nerds, we all love to be night owls and play video games until 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, we do.
Which is still fun every once in a while, but if you're trying to be a productive human being and also a parent, become a morning person. Just do it, you know. Suck it up and love it.
So do you drink coffee, tea, or energy drinks?
No, I don't.
Just water?
I do. It's weird. When I was transitioning to a morning person, I do coffee now, but I don't do it every morning. Cassandra, Phoenix's mom, is absolutely a coffee person, and she takes one out every single morning. But I don't enable myself to do that. For a while, when I was transitioning into becoming a morning person, I actually drank grape juice in the morning because just the tartness of it woke me up.
That'll do it, yeah.
Super fast. I also found sniffing a lemon is a great way to just wake you up in the moment without realizing that you're waking up. And that was a technique that I used to use when I worked in animation and I was an assistant editor, and I had to stay awake to keep working like throughout the evenings. And so instead of just having to suck down coffee every 4 hours, I just kept a lemon at my desk, and I would just cut it, sniff it, cut it, sniff it, cut it, sniff it.
Interesting.
And it worked. It was nuts. It worked, though. And it worked really well. Even if it worked for just a minute, it was
enough.
It was enough.
That's neat. Yeah. I'll have to...
Give it a weird shot. Just like in the morning when you're like making your breakfast or whatever, just keep a lemon there, and don't be afraid to take a cold lemon and just get up in there. So,
there's so many ways we can take it, but I'm just going to let it roll and go.
Just let it exist. Let it exist where it is.
I mean, we have some essential oils around, lemon being one of them. So I might cheat and try to start with that and see if I can't get some sort of effect, and then the next time I go to the grocery store later on this week, I'll have to grab a couple and just give it a go and report back on it for sure.
Yeah, report back. It's interesting because I found that this fresh citrus is actually what did it even more than just the scent of lemon. But whatever works, man.
Yeah, I'm a coffee person.
Well, there you go.
I wake
coffee
up,
is
I make
still
my coffee.
Great.
Yeah,
it still doesn't suck. But if you want to minimize your potential coffee intake, I reward myself with coffee on the weekend is kind of how I do it now.
Oh, okay.
And I try not to drink it through the week.
Yeah, I reward myself with like a Starbucks on the weekend, but I brew it home during the week.
Got it. That makes sense.
So all in levels. I did do a month of. I challenged. I just randomly was like, I'm going to try no caffeine and see what happens. I'm going to give it 30 days. And the first couple of days were brutal, as expected, but the transition was surprisingly easy in the mornings.
It was in the afternoons.
Afternoon and lunchtime that it was like, man, I want something bubbly. And then I found LaCroix, sparkling water.
Cool.
And it's been LaCroix has essentially replaced sodas for me, which that's a nice bonus of this. But after a month, and I realized I wasn't that dependent on coffee, I was like, okay, I don't feel bad about drinking coffee every morning now.
That's fair. And I still do have a real bad soda addiction that I'm fighting with Talking Rain soda water, which now they keep at the studio. So whenever I want to have a soda at the studio, I just drink sparkling water instead. These are things that you don't think about when you're 25 years old.
No, you really don't. You just do what you want, and then kids come
hell
along
with
and you're like, oh wait, I have to pay attention now.
Make good choices. That's what it comes down to. Just make good choices. So speaking of making good choices, it is getting close to bed by time here, and
not a problem.
I may have to go make sure that he is getting his fullest amount of food, in that we and then we do our books, and then we do our sing songs, and then he goes down for the night. So
Well, thank you for the time. I appreciate it greatly, especially. As you said, having kids, it forces you to pick and choose wisely where you spend your time. So I feel very honored that you would spend this time with me this evening. That's no worries. It is about good choices, and to be honest, you always want to give back to the community too. And if people make an effort for me, then I should make an effort for them. Even Absolutely.
If I can't always do that, I should always try to make an effort for the people who put in the time and energy to do something like this.
I hear you.
So, and good luck on your future episodes and all of the things that you cover. And I look forward to seeing you on the Pledge Manager tomorrow when the ABCs goes live on Backer Kit. So
absolutely. And for people who would like to find you on the interwebs who may not know where you are already, where is the best place and what would that stuff be?
Yeah, it's just on Twitter, Hydra_Lord, and on Facebook you can just type in Ivan Van Norman. It should come up. And, as you pointed out, I'm on Mondays and Thursday nights at Geek and Sundry on Twitch.tv. So there you go.
Awesome. Well, thank you, sir. Have a great evening. Enjoy your dinner time and the bedtime routine. And we'll talk soon.
All right, man. Take care.
Thanks again to Ivan for choosing to give me and you the time that he has that is so precious to him. And just when you're making choices, consider what he said. It's all about priorities and being wise with the time that we have. And it's just something great to keep in mind. For any links to anything talked about from his social media to the ABCs of RPGs to some of the books talked about, the games talked about, and things like that, you'll find all that in the show notes over on www.geekanddad.com/podcast. While there, don't forget to check out my very first episode with none other than AKA Mike B. And yeah, that sums it up for today. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please leave me a review on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you may be. Reviews are helpful in multiple ways, the most significant of those being I need feedback so I can get better at this craft of podcasting so that you can enjoy these conversations better. So, leave a review. Find me on the internet at Geek and Dad on Twitter, at Geek and Dad on Internet. You can email me directly as well, Kyle@geekanddad.com. And until next time, geek on.